We're reading today from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 15, text number 57. Adavante Jnananam Sad Adavante Jnananam Sad Padhirantaha Paravaram Pahirantaha Paravaram Jnanam Jayam Vachuvachyam Jnanam Jayam Vachuvachyam Tamo Jyotis Svayam Svayam Adavante Jnananam Sad Pahirantaha Paravaram Jnanam Jayam Vachuvachyam Tamo Jyotis Svayam Svayam Ado, in the beginning, Ante, at the end, Jnanam, of all living entities, Sat, always existing, Bahi, externally, Antaha, internally, Para, transcendental, Avaram, material, Jnanam, knowledge, Gayam, the objective, Vachaha, expression, Vachyam, the ultimate object, Tamaha, darkness, Jyoti, light, Tu, indeed, Ayam, this one, the Supreme Lord, Swayam, Himself. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. He who exists internally and externally, at the beginning and at the end of everything and all living beings, as that which is enjoyable and as the enjoyer of everything, superior and inferior, is the Supreme Truth. He always exists as knowledge and the object of knowledge, as expression and as the object of understanding, as darkness and as light. Thus He, the Supreme Lord, is everything. Please repeat after me responsively. He who exists internally and externally, at the beginning and end of everything and all living beings, as that which is enjoyable and as enjoyer of everything, superior and inferior, is the Supreme Truth. He always exists as knowledge and the object of knowledge, as expression and the object of understanding, as darkness and light. Thus He, the Supreme Lord, is everything. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Purport. Here, the Vedic aphorism, Sarva Kalvidam Brahma, is explained. It is also explained in the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam. Aham evasam evagre. The Supreme Lord existed in the beginning. He exists after the creation and maintains everything. And after destruction, everything merges into Him, as is stated in Bhagavad-Gita, Pakritim yante mamikam. Thus the Supreme Lord is actually everything. In the conditioned state, we are bewildered in our understanding. But in the perfect stage of liberation, we can understand that Krishna is the cause of everything. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govindaha Sarva Karanam Karanam. The translation of that verse is, Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme controller. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, for He is the prime cause of all causes. This is from the Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, text 1. Thus, He is the perfection of knowledge. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskacha Desatarne Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita, Shri Gadadhar, Shri Bas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This, today's verse, verse 57, Canto 7, Chapter 15, continues the instruction of Narad Muni to Yudhisthira Maharaj. At the very beginning of this canto, 900 pages before this, in Srila Prabhupada's translation, in the very first verse, Parikshit Maharaj, he says to Sukadeva Goswami, he said, Vishnu, he is equal to everyone. Yet, he seems to favor Indra. So how can someone who's equal appear to be partial to some and inimical to others? He is referring to the 6th canto, in which Vritasura is killed. Vritasura, he took birth because of the curse of Parvati. On Chitraketu, when Parikshit asked this question about the impartiality of Vishnu, Sukadeva Goswami becomes very enlivened. He said, this is a very good question. It was such a good question that he's taken 900 pages of Bhagavatam to answer the question. Good question. He said, this is a good question. So he tells tells Parikshit Maharaj about King Yudhisthira. It says, King Yudhisthira, he was performing the Rajasuya sacrifice. And during that time, he says, Shishupal, who was very inimical towards Krishna, he had his head severed from his body by Krishna's Sudarshan chakra. And then in front of the entire assembly, it says, just like a meteorite, like a blazing meteorite, Shishupal went through the assembly and merged into Krishna's body. This merging, everyone knows, is Sajuja Mukti. The merging is a type of liberation. So Maharaj Yudhisthira, he asked Narad Muni, how can this happen? Mukti, even the lower types of mukti, like Sayuja Mukti, is impossible to attain even for great sages who are intent on focusing on this for thousands of years. So how can it be that Shishupal, who was inimical to Krishna, how can he attain this benediction? Narad Muni, as recalled by Sukadev Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj, Narad Muni, he explains about Jai and Vijay, the doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, and their encounter with the 4 Kumaras who they refused to let in. On account of this, he said they were cursed to take births in the material world. The first birth, he informs Maharaj Yudhisthira, was Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. The second birth was Ravan, Dantabhaktra, Ravan and Kumbhakarna. And the third verse was Shishupal and Dantabhakra. Narad Muni, he is one of the Mahajans. He is one of the foremost authorities on the science of bhakti-yoga in this universe. He is speaking very authoritatively. Does anyone know who any of the other Mahajans was? Can anyone name one of the Mahajans? Prahlad Maharaj, yes. Bali Maharaj, yes. Swayambhuv Manu, yes. Yamaraj, yes. Who? Shukadev Goswami, yes. 4 Kumaras. There's Brahma, Shiva, Narad, the 4 Kumaras, Kapila, Prahlad Maharaj, Swayambhuv Manu, Janaki, Bali Maharaj, Bhishma, Sukadev Goswami, and Yaharaj. Narad describes Prahlad Maharaj as being the best among exalted devotees. So exalted is he, and so intriguing is this story, this pastime of Lord Nrsingadev, Hiranyakashipu, and Prahlad Maharaj, that the greater part of the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam is devoted to this pastime. Yudhisthira Maharaj, after hearing the entire Leela, the pastime, the reason why Prahlad Maharaj is such an exalted devotee, becomes very, very excited, very, very pleased. he asks Narad Muni, what is the symptoms, what are the characteristics of Dharma? And the characteristics of the Varnashram. So in 4 chapters, Narad Muni, he answers these questions. In chapter 11, he describes what is actual Dharma. He describes the 4 social ashrams. Chapter 12, he describes the roles, the positions of the brahmacharis and the vanaprasthas in the 4 spiritual classes, 4 spiritual orders. 13, he describes, chapter 13, he describes sannyasis. And that chapter, of course, is entitled The Behavior of a Perfect Person. One day, when we were walking with Srila Prabhupada took his walk every morning. About 6 o'clock, he would come out of his room, go to the main road, and walk towards Tatikar, along the road. In those days, it was all fields. There was no buildings, nothing at all, just fields, growing crops. About a mile, 2 miles along the road, on the left-hand side, there was a little dwelling, a little ashram. A Delhi businessman was maintaining this ashram. And this ashram was strictly for members of the sannyas order in the line from Shankaracharya. Proper danda sannyasis. I think it's fair to say that most of the sadhus that we see in Vrindavan are actually vanaprasthas. They're not paka sannyasis. At best, they're vanaprasthas. But this was an ashram for paka, proper, initiated sannyasis who were following strictly in the line of Shankaracharya. There was about 8 of us, disciples, walking with Srila Prabhupada. He was just chanting that morning, walking along, chanting, absorbing himself in Vrindavan. Vrindavan was very beautiful. The weather was nice. There were peacocks, birds, crops were growing in the fields. 2 of these Mayavadi sannyasis approached. They were walking bare feet, and each of them held the single rod for Ekadanda sannyasi, which was covered with the cloth, just like our sannyasis cover their tridanda with cloth also. As they approached Srila Prabhupada, they stopped together about 8 or 10 feet away. They stopped, they bowed their heads, and they said, Namo Narayan. Srila Prabhupada immediately answered, Hare Krishna. They bowed their heads and passed. We walked about another 8 or 10 feet, and Srila Prabhupada stopped abruptly. He had a cane, walking stick. He banged his cane against the black tower of the road. Banged his cane. He said, why you did not pay respect to these men? And Prabhupada's secretary at the time, he justified his activity by just looking and ignoring them. He said, Srila Prabhupada, they were Mayavadi sannyasis. Prabhupada banged his cane again. He said, they are sannyasi. You must respect the order of sannyas. So this chapter 13 is describing the sannyasi conduct, and Prabhupada describes it as the behavior of a perfect person, the perfect person. Chapter 14 was about the grihastas, ideal family life. And this chapter, chapter 15, we're dealing with different grades of Brahman. And it's called Instructions for Civilized Human Beings. Narad, he is giving all of these instructions to Yudhisthira. a few verses before, he summarized these instructions as: 1, we should follow the instructions of our Guru. And 2, we should live according to the Shastras. This verse 57 encapsulates the entire conclusion of the Vedic Shastras, the entire conclusion of the Vaishnava Sampradayas and all of the Acharyas who have commented on the Vedic scriptures. This is a very important verse. It says, the word for word translation of the Sanskrit to English is ado, in the beginning, ante, in the end, sat, always existing, bahi, externally, antaha, internally, para, transcendental. It says, Jnanam, Gyayam, knowledge and the object of knowledge. Vacham, the ultimate object. Swayam, the Supreme Lord Himself. Once more, the translation is, He who exists internally and externally, at the beginning and at the end, of everything and all living entities, as that which is the enjoyable and the enjoyed of everything, superior and inferior, is the absolute truth. So this is the standard Vedic description, the definition of Param Brahma, of the absolute truth of God. He existed in the beginning and in the end. He is the absolute creator and absolute enjoyer. He is within everything, superior and inferior. He exists as knowledge and the object of knowledge, as darkness and of light. He is the absolute truth. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, here the Vedic aphorism, Sarva Kalvidam Brahma, is explained. This is an aphorism taken from the Chandogya Upanishad. The Chandogya is considered to be a very important Upanishad. Generally, it's listed as number 9 in the list of the 108 principal Upanishads. It is taken from the Samaveda. There's 8 chapters in the Chandogya Upanishad, and in general, the Chandogya is about the oneness, the undifferentiatedness of Brahman, that everything is Brahman, everything is God. And this is the conclusion and this is the teachings of the Vaishnavacharyas, that everything is God, everything comes from God. There's another famous aphorism which comes from the Chandogya Upanishad, which is Tat Tvamasi, I am that. These are both from the Chandogya Upanishad. So this aphorism, Sarva Kalvidam Brahma, that everything is Brahma, everything is Krishna. This is the teachings of Srila Prabhupada, of the entire Sampradaya, the Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya, of all the other Sampradayas. This is the teaching of Narad, of the Mahajans, that Krishna, He is everything. Prabhupada says in the purport, in the conditioned state, we are bewildered in our understanding of how Krishna can be everything. In one conversation, one devotee is asking how the flower becomes spiritual. We offer it to Krishna. How does it become spiritual? Prabhupada says, so you are saying that it's when it's on the tree, it's not spiritual, but when we offer it to Krishna, it is spiritual. He said, how can this happen? He said, it is always spiritual. The flower is always spiritual. Everything is always spiritual. But we, in our enjoying capacity, we are thinking that this is material. Because we are thinking material is what is going to satisfy our senses in some way. But it is always spiritual. And this is explained that everything is always Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, that everything is spiritual, everything is Brahma, everything is God, everything is coming from Krishna. Krishna is within everything, but outside of everything. This is explained by all of the acharyas. Srila Prabhupada would translate Srimad Bhagavatam from a Bengali text that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj had compiled. In different places in Srila Prabhupada's library, I have seen in Los Angeles, in Srila Prabhupada's room, there is this multi-volume set of the Bhagavatam. So there is a number of different Vaishnavacharyas, Ramanuj, Madhvacharya, Sridhar Swami, Sanatan Goswami, Ballabhacharya, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Jiva Goswami, Baladev Vidyabhusana, Jayadwaja Tirtha, who did a great commentary in the Madhva Sampradaya, and of course Bhaktisiddhanta himself. Srila Prabhupada, he describes here, he said this is also explained in Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam. Aham evasam avagre. This is the beginning, the first line of 4 verses in the 2nd canto, 9th chapter, verses 33, 34, 35, 36. These were the original instructions, the original teachings of Lord Krishna to Lord Brahma at the beginning of creation. These are the 4 seed verses. They're very important verses because they encompass the entire teachings of the Vaishnava philosophy. They're very, very lengthy, quite complex, and Srila Prabhupada quotes many of the acharyas who we have mentioned. So it's a very slim volume, but in these Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada gives 28 complete pages of commentary. If we include the verses themselves, the verse and translation generally takes up a half a page. There are 30 pages of commentary of the Srimad Bhagavatam, of this Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam. Krishna begins his teachings to Lord Brahma. The rest of the Bhagavatam has expanded and is explanations of these 4 verses. Krishna begins his instruction to Brahma. He said, Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before creation, when there was nothing but myself. He says, 34, whatever is of any value it is because it is connected to me. The flower is spiritual because we understand that Krishna created it. In the absence of understanding that everything was created by Krishna, everything belongs to Krishna, everything should be used for Krishna's pleasure, for Krishna's service. In the absence of this understanding, whatever we see in the material world is just the cause of our further illusion and our further entanglement within material nature. In verse 35, Krishna is saying the same thing which is repeated so many places throughout the Shastras, and which all have elaborate commentary by the Acharyas. 5th canto, 2nd chapter, there is elaborate commentary. Prabhupada quotes so many things which they are dealing with this same point. The point is, O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into this cosmos, and at the same time they do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything, and at the same time I am outside of everything. So this requires some spiritual understanding, and this is the main point, which is the subject matter of all of the commentaries of all of the Vaishnavacharyas. Verse 36, Krishna says, you should search for this understanding in all circumstances, in all space, in all time, both directly and indirectly. And I've just given a slight summary of those verses, but as I said, there is 30 pages of commentary. So anyone who is not familiar with this, you should read these verses, you should study, because this is the original Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada also says here, he said in Bhagavad-Gita, Prakritim yanti mamikam. This is actually from Bhagavad-Gita 9, chapter 9, verse 7, in which Krishna says, O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature. And at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create again. So again we have this same point. In the beginning there was only Krishna. Krishna, through the agency of Brahma, created the material universe. The errant jivas, we foolish people who think we can enjoy here, we're here. As soon as we understand everything belongs to Krishna, everything can be used in His service, then we can begin the process of bhakti. The process of bhakti will give us complete understanding of our constitutional position with the relationship with Krishna, and we can then understand that everything is Krishna, everything is non-different from Krishna, because everything is Krishna's energy, and everything should be used in Krishna's service. All the Vaishnavacharyas and all of the numerous literatures, they all arrive at this same conclusion. Krishna, Bhagavan, Vishnu, Narayan, Ram is unique and exalted. He is in a unique category because he is Bhagavan. We are the Jiva Shakti. Our position is to worship Krishna. The Acharyas are all giving these commentaries so that we can leave the path of pravriti, of material enjoyment, and take to the path of nivritti, which was discussed a few verses previous to this. The verse of nivritti, that we should renounce, and the highest expression of renunciation is to use everything in Krishna's service. Lord Chaitanya, he instructed that there's 5 principles by which we can attain perfection. The first principle is to chant the holy names of Krishna as Lord Brahma, as is described in the Kali Santan Upanishad. This is the most effective way of purifying the consciousness and understanding our position in relationship to Krishna. The first principle is the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The second principle given by Lord Chaitanya is the reading, the studying, the discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam. The third principle is worship of the deities. The fourth principle is association of devotees. And the fifth principle, he gives these 5 main principles. The fifth principle is to live in a holy place like Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada, he has given us absolutely everything. The holy name, he initiates us through the parampara into the chanting of the holy name. He has translated Srimad Bhagavatam into English language. BBT have translated into 60 or 70 more languages. He has given these wonderful deities, Krishna Balaram, Radha Shamsundar, Gaur-Nitai, here in Vrindavan. We can live here, center our lives around the worship of the deity. He has given the association of each other, people who are just, especially here in Vrindavan, people who are just intent on dedicating their life to serving Krishna's lotus feet. And he has revealed to us this holy place of Vrindavan. Prabhupada, in the line of the previous acharyas, has given us a complete understanding how Krishna is different and also non-different from the material energy, because the material energy is an energy of Krishna. Prabhupada explains this point like the prison. He says, to the government, the prison is just another department. There is the health department, there is the military, there's so many departments. So although the people in the prison feel very deprived and very restrictive, as far as the government is concerned, it's just another government department. So although the material world at times can give us a lot of distress, a lot of parisan, still this is only to rectify us, to make us realize our limitations and again dedicate ourselves to serving Krishna. This concept that Krishna is different and non-different from the material energy, this is what is called Achinta Beda Beda Tattva. Inconceivable. It is inconceivable in terms of logic, in terms of understanding. Srila Prabhupada said, it is possible by logic, by empiric speculation, to come to an understanding of impersonal Brahman. But to understand Bhagavan Sri Krishna, bhakti is necessary. So this is achintya, it's inconceivable unless we take to the process of bhakti. So, as Narad Muni said a few days ago, we should follow the order of our spiritual master, and we should live our lives according to Shastra. Several times, to different devotees, in different circumstances, Srila Prabhupada wrote a personal letter. There is 4 of these letters that I know about. And Srila Prabhupada, he wrote the same thing. He said, if you follow the regulative principles, if you chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna on your mala, he said, you will see Krishna face to face. He said, and this is guaranteed. This is guaranteed. So Srila Prabhupada has given us everything. He has given us the wonderful process of living our lives fully and completely in Krishna's service, and at the end of this life, going back home to Godhead. An understanding of this is, as Srila Prabhupada said in the final line of this purport of verse 57. Prabhupada says, an understanding of this is perfect knowledge. We are so fortunate. We cannot even understand the extent of our fortune, because we cannot begin to understand the compassion and the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. That he went to New York on a cargo ship. When I came, first I came to India, 1971, the ticket for London was $100. I think by the relative distances, a ticket from New York would probably be $200. Now, today, we have so many people donating. We read a list of people who are donating. $200 is a small donation today. It's not a big donation. And even in those days, it was not so much money. So are we thinking that Srila Prabhupada couldn't raise $200? There is one devotee in South India, he runs 2 orphanages. As he was traveling in India, he would see the little children begging in the railways, begging in the carriages, sweeping, and so he set up 2 orphanages specifically for these children. And he put the word around all over, particularly in South India, if any of these children are sick, because they like this life when they're young. But if they're sick, they can come. He has one place in Secunderabad, one place in Vijayawada. And if they're sick, they can just make it there. And all the local rickshawwalas know that if they take one of these kids, at the railway station, take him to his place, an orphanage, he will pay them the fare. They will they're not, so they would take, and the kids they can. So, British Airways in London, they are so impressed by this person. He's an Englishman and he's doing this. So they have given him a code. He just rings up British Airways, yes, how can I help you, sir? He said, I have this code. They know he is a VIP person who gets free tickets. Yes, sir, how can I help you, sir? Immediately they book him on any flight that British Airways wants to go anywhere in the world. Business class. Anywhere he goes, he flies business class, if that's the route of British Airways, because they just have such respect for this man because he's taking care of some children. So are we thinking that Srila Prabhupada couldn't get a ticket from Indian Airways because he's the ambassador of Vaishnav culture. Radhanath Maharaj has one disciple he has a place in London. And the house in London is in the very same square as the British Embassy. And a few years ago, someone offered him $80 million for the house. So $18 million is 5 crores of rupees. It's not. It's more. It's, I think, 50. It's 300 crores. 300 crores rupees. Offered it, and the man said, no, I will take the house. Radhanath, he likes to stay with the devotees, but on occasion he lives in the man's house. A big house, 5 stories, right in the Belgravia, most expensive place in London. So are we thinking that Srila Prabhupada couldn't have some business people who had an apartment? Swamiji, you can use our apartment, but not during August. We have the trades fair and we have, but you use it there. No, Srila Prabhupada, he went with nothing. He went with less money than what it cost to get a thali in the Krishna Balaram guest house restaurant. My personal feeling is that Srila Prabhupada deliberately did this. He went with nothing, not having anywhere to go, not having anyone to meet. Sitting under the tree in Tompkins Square Park, chanting Hare Krishna. When the devotees were doing Srila Prabhupada's life story, his biography, they went to Srimati Morarji. They went to she opened the records for them of this thing, the Prabhupada and the Jaladuta and so on. And there was a telegram from her to her agent in New York, to her employee. She said, 1, Swamiji is coming on such and such a date, such and such a thing. Make sure there's a space for him, a berth for him on the ship 10 days later that's coming back. Make sure he's on the thing. I don't want him stuck in New York. 10 days. She was, let him go, have a look. She had already promised him she would build him a small temple in Vrindavan. He could just stay there, do his puja. But I am convinced that Srila Prabhupada, he went with nothing. Not a book contract, not a sponsorship, nowhere to stay, not a free ticket on the air, with nothing to show us we can spread Krishna consciousness with absolutely nothing except the desire to do so. We don't need any support from the material energy. And of course the material energy is Krishna's energy, and it is supportive of us. But we can influence others to be devotees. We can give them the teachings of the Sampradaya. We can have a little bit of the compassion, a little bit of the mercy of Srila Prabhupada for the fallen conditioned souls, simply if we have the desire to do this. And the desire is coming from the chanting of the holy names, the study of the Shastras, the worship of the deities, association of other devotees, taking strength and energy from the holy Dham of Vrindavan. One time, here in Vrindavan, I heard Srila Prabhupada say, he was reminiscing, surrounded by his disciples in his room, spreading Krishna consciousness in so many countries, so many books, so many languages. Srila Prabhupada said, I was very happy living here in Vrindavan. Say, but Krishna, he kicked me out. We have so much to be grateful to Lord Sri Krishna for sending his ambassador, his soldier, his general, his emissary to the Western country. We have so much to be grateful to Srila Prabhupada for coming to the West, by giving us these teachings, by being patient with us, slowly, slowly giving us these teachings. So that is when the devotees, when we say Jai Prabhupada, this is a prayer that we are saying with all of the gratitude within our hearts. Jai Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.